The point is, I started for myself because few weeks ago, months ago, I had nothing interesting going in my life. But now that I do, I want to start recording it so that I can look back at it and be like, damn, dude, we've grown. Now that I'm using TechnoTutor, I have that discipline in me. Today's the 6th day, waking up at 4 a.m.
You're gonna hear me mention TechnoTutor probably in every single video that I make, because now I start to see how important and actually powerful it is. You've heard me talk about TechnoTutor almost everywhere now. I'm gonna make more videos, explain how my life is changing, and you'll see how my life is gonna change. Change is something that should be measurable, not how you feel. Someone else can see what you've done and point it out to you. That's physical. By the age of 22, I made over, what, 10,000 a day, 24,000 a week, and it's been just growing since. I saw so many people online who share things that they heard from someplace, and I was like, maybe I should actually achieve something in my life before I share it, so that I'm actually sharing something that works. I went from not being able to make money, like any money, to a point where now I have financial freedom. Like I bought 20 watches.
Bought the Tesla Model S at 22 years old.
I couldn't come up with the word to describe how I'm feeling to get to a point where I can buy a 6-figure car.
Luxury apartment.
This is like part of like the lobby.
Look at this. We have a pool table. This is the first pool, and this is like the first place that I got on my own.
Building elite networks and communities down in Houston.
I didn't get this stuff just to show it off. I got these to show people how I went from being born and raised in Iran, not knowing how to make money, thinking that I have to work a 9-to-5 job for the rest of my life. I've grown 10x, more than 10x, again using the tools TechnoTutor and getting the support of everyone in our community. TechnoTutor is the key to using that tool. I've been able to get more money, get a better relationship, get better health, expand my network. When I use TechnoTutor, I actually started seeing real results, and it was something that other people were able to replicate. It took me 30 days. I was holding the money in my hand and I was like, what just happened?
Welcome, Mahyar. How's it going?
What up? What up? Good to be here, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Likewise, I see you got the whiteboard set up. About to drop some knowledge, drop some gold.
You already know.
Let's do it. Awesome.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, I'm like super excited for this interview, this testimonial, just because you've done so much, right? You've came, just watching your journey as a whole. It's been super amazing, right? Just from where you come from, you know, literally growing up in Iran, coming over here when you were a teenager, and now, I mean, I see you posting, you bought the Tesla, right? Model S at 22 years old,
Right.
Luxury apartment, building elite networks and communities down in Houston, starting now to infiltrate politics and all this stuff. So we're gonna dive in. We're gonna dive in.
Let's do it.
But yeah, so I think we could just kick it off. If you just want to introduce yourself here a bit, you know, let people know who you are, kind of a little bit about your background.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, that was a dope introduction. So my name is Mahyar. I'm originally, like Pedro said, from Iran, right? It's somewhere in the Middle East next to Afghanistan or somewhere. And I was chatting with someone actually yesterday who, because my upbringing in Iran wasn't that great. And she was saying, oh, you should be proud of where you're from and this and that. And I was like, yeah, like it's, you know, each person grows different. Like I have cousins who enjoy growing up, but for me, it was like kind of like hell. I mean, my parents came to America when I was, they tried to come here when I was 7, but then my dad didn't want to come because his mom was there, his family was there, whatnot. So we didn't get a chance to come at that age. And then when I was 14, we got another chance, and my mom was like, we're going. And if they said no, then I don't even know if we could have exited Iran. And over there, like at 18, everyone's forced to go to military, whatnot. So I can't go back right now unless I buy like the certificate of like as if I went to military or whatnot. Some people do. So yeah, that's my upbringing. I grew up with my cousin. I remember he had internet, one of those dial-ups that makes a bunch of noises, like and then after like 10 minutes you could use it in like super slow. But I never had one for me. And so I never really understood what is YouTube, what is Google, and like any of that stuff really. And yeah, growing up, just thought the only jobs existed was like engineer and a doctor. And I was the type that, you know, growing up, I don't know if anyone watching this or you relate to that, but I wasn't a fan of school in the sense of I was like, what are we learning here? Like, what's the point? You know? So
I think everyone has that thought at some point.
Right? Yeah. I think my mom would always like complain to the school of, what are you teaching my kid? Why this? Why that? And just none of it made sense. So, but she didn't have a solution, so she didn't know what else to do. And yeah, so growing up, had a hard time reading, right? It's funny because now I have clients who, you know, are diagnosed with different things, dyslexia, ADHD, all that, autism. And then I'm like, well, what are the symptoms that you're having? And the stuff they all share of like, oh, when I read, I have to read the same sentence like 5 times and I still don't get it. Or when I try to spell, I don't even know how to spell. Or I can't sit and focus on one thing and I have to jump around. And I'm like, well, those all sound like the stuff I have. I mean, I never went to a doctor, but it sounds like actually my dad, he's 51, and he just got diagnosed with ADHD. So he went to the doctor, and the doctor, I think, sent him some videos. He was like, hey, see if you relate to this. And then he watched it. He was like, yeah, that's me. And he's like, yeah, you have ADHD. And I'm like, what? So, and it's crazy. So that was my upbringing. And yeah, we came over here, and I came here when I was almost 15, and I was supposed to go to 9th grade, but they put me a year back because I had 2 weeks that I didn't finish, you know, school back in Iran for the middle school. So yeah, that's when we got here, and the journey started there. But what do you want me to get into now?
Yeah. So yeah, tell me a little bit about that journey, right? Because and maybe we dive a bit deeper into kind of what life was like in Iran. I think that could be valuable because especially in the US, I think we just take for granted sometimes how how lucky we have it, for lack of a better word. We just don't have that perspective overall, where you know, we've had many conversations about how especially like you mentioned it, like some of the jobs that were there, what you thought was possible was like doctor, engineer, that was it. And how like business or making a ton of money, personal development even, it wasn't really a thing. So yeah, if you want to share just a bit, like, how did you discover TechnoTutor? And where did that journey begin?
Sure. Okay. And I'll share some things here that I haven't shared anywhere else in terms of like, because I don't go into like Iran, what it was like, right? Because if I share what it is, someone that's born here, it's like, damn, that's pretty terrible. But for me, I was born in it, so I never thought it was terrible until I came here, right? It's like, imagine like my mom, right? She never she didn't want to get a dog, even though when we were younger, my dad would always get a dog and things like that. But she was like always against it because she's like, I don't want to, you know, restrain the dog. I don't want it to be in a small place. I don't want it to be in a cage. And I was explaining to her like that the dog that's born in that environment, that's all it knows. So it doesn't know that it could run around in the yard and all that. So it's not going to be depressed. But because you have that vision of there's more, then you think that that's depressive. But I'm like, I was explaining to her, imagine you take someone who was born in a castle and, you know, fucking thousands of acres of land, and they just go around in golf cars and whatnot. And I'm like, now imagine you bring that to someone and show them that we live in an apartment. They're gonna be like, okay, so do you own like this whole building and you could go to any of the rooms? And imagine you're like, no, one of these, and they're gonna be like, how, right? But because we're born in that, it's normal. So in Iran, you know, it wasn't for me as bad as it may seem, but at the same time, looking at the people there, I could see they don't have any of the opportunities you would have here. Over there, it's like either you're very wealthy or like you just don't have it and don't get a chance. Like there's people there with 2-3 master degrees who the best job they could get is like selling hot dog on the street. And I know some of those people, right? And So yeah, that was kind of like over there. Like I tell people, and they think I joke. Like one of my uncles, like he had a toy. He was like very wealthy. He had like a house with like LEDs around it. Like at that time, like he had a lot of money, and they had like a toilet. They had a bathtub and all that. And I was like, damn, like you could just sit and take a shit. Whereas most of us, it's just a hole and you have to squat. And after 2 minutes, your legs start shaking. So that's kind of what that was. And when I was saying I only thought like only engineer or doctor, that's genuinely what I thought. Like it didn't occur to me like the guy working at a grocery store, that's a job. Sales, yeah, I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know what was a webinar, any of that. So that's why coming to America, I would get sold too easily. Like I would just buy all these courses, buy all the books. I'm like, shit, this is exactly what I need. But then I couldn't go through it. I would lose passion. I would just jump from one thing to another, right? The shiny syndrome, right? It's like, oh, that's gonna get me rich. I would jump into e-commerce. Oh, social media, like that's what I need to do. Drop shipping, oh, that's what's gonna make me 6 figures. And so growing up, coming here, when I did discover, internet, all that stuff, started watching videos, then I would just jump to so many things and never really making it anything. And then I think when I was 16, 17, that's when my mom shared the secret with me, right? Like where they talk about law of attraction, all that. There's a book by Rhonda Byrne, and the version of it that I saw, because later on, like years later, I found out there's a whole documentary, like very well made and all that. Because the version I saw was like on YouTube. It was like 15-20 minutes, and the quality was like blurry. I think it was just like deleted scenes from the actual documentary that they put in. Like I think that's the version I saw, but that was the first time where I was like, damn, like I could do more. But what was funny is when I did the whole positive thinking, things like that, because I think positive thinking helps, because if you're just thinking negative, then you got no chance, right? But positive thinking helps, but it's not the main ingredient that'll make you wealthy or have a best relationship. Like if you're in a relationship and your wife is yelling at you, positive thinking is not going to save you in that moment, right? So right, so and when I started applying, this is, if I had to summarize my journey, most of the frustration came from, when you apply the positive thinking, law of attraction, self-development. I watched all the motivational videos, all the relationship courses. I bought all those dating courses, most of us buy, how to flirt, how to do this, all that, health, whatever. And when you do the positive thinking, what's interesting is you may start working out more, you may go for walks more, work out at the gym, like your health may improve to some degree. Relationship wise, like you may start talking to more people, not necessarily a romantic relationship, but just finding more friends, like that'll become easier. But then the two things, and I've asked hundreds of people this, right, that apply the law of attraction, positive thinking. I was like, so now when you applied that, did it help you, one, get into an actual romantic relationship that for a fact it's gonna last a lifetime? And pretty much everyone is like, no, and most of them are single and whatnot. And two, anytime it would come to making money, that's where the big block was. It's like it was this big wall of fire and no one even understood why. And everyone pretended like everything's good, because in the self-development, they're like, be positive, just picture it and it's fine. So everyone's acting positive, but in reality, they don't have it. And everyone has the mindset of, oh, but the more I think about it, it'll come. Like, I just know it, man. And it's like 5 years gone by, and it's like still in the same position. And I was in that position too, so that's why I don't blame. It's like for 5 years I was just positive. I'm like, no, I know, like everyone's telling me you got potential. I know I have potential. It's gonna happen this year. And it's like 5 years gone by, and it's like still the year hasn't come. And so at some point I had to really become self-honest of, okay, maybe I don't know what it takes to make money, so let me go and find mentors. And it wasn't until then that really things started shifting. But I had to get to that point first of, I cannot do this by myself, because I always thought I'm gonna do it myself. No one understands me as good as I do, and all that stuff. But so that's
that's super key, because we hear often this lone wolf mentality.
Yeah.
Where for some reason, you know, we just think we can do it alone, or we have to do it alone. Whereas in reality, you know, people at the top, they're not competing, they're collaborating.
Right.
They all have very elite networks, a huge Rolodex, people that they know that they can count on and rely on and do business with.
Yeah.
It's kind of to your point, it's a different level of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to summarize a bit, if I'm hearing you right, so you were doing the positive affirmations, the positive thinking, reading the books, doing all the courses, but nothing was really changing. Is that fair to say?
Right. And if anything, it was getting worse because I was thinking positive. So I was spending money I didn't have. So I was actually going more in debt than good. So yeah, exactly. Right. It helped the other way, you know?
For sure. Yeah. Okay. And so, I guess you touched a bit on like what life was like before TechnoTutor. Is there anything you want to expand on that you think could be helpful?
Sure. I mean, in terms of willpower, I had no willpower before. I was very lazy, like always on the couch, just watching movies. And the idea that I have to go out there and work hard, like I just hated that. I was like, no, I don't want to work hard, you know? My parents told me work hard in school, and then when you graduate, then you could relax after. So I'm like, I'm not gonna work hard, you know? But then after school, it's no, that's where real life actually just begins, right? So yeah, the very lazy, couldn't read, right? And you hear everyone's like, leaders are readers, and I'm like, well, shit, what am I supposed to do now? Like, I can't read, I don't know what to do. And it was really depressing. Like the first 15 years of my life, there was a point where I didn't even remember because how depressing it was. And my mom, going through her traumas, what she went through, she didn't even remember the first 40 years of her life. She went through war, all that stuff. Wow. So there was like a lot of trauma, stress, suppressed emotions, and really the main point was the victim mentality. It's like always thinking, no, I can't do it. Life is not fair. No matter how hard I try, other people have it way easier than me. Why is it that I have to work 4 times, 10 times as hard to get something that someone gets doing a little bit, like, you know? And that was my mentality. And yeah, just thinking like, I don't deserve it. You know, I'm a victim. That was really that mentality, you know? For
sure. That makes sense. Okay, so now flash forward a bit. You find out about TechnoTutor. What made you choose TechnoTutor?
Okay, I'll tell you there's 2 things. One, have you heard of that saying? They're like, you know, if you hang around the barber, you'll eventually get a haircut, right? Like
it's like something like that. I haven't heard that one specifically. That's a good one.
Okay. Because I just
got a haircut this morning. So.
Right, there you go. Your haircut looks fresh. Yeah, there you go. No, I remember someone broke it down, and that like really stuck. They were like, let's say you have 0 money. If you just go hang around a barber, like eventually he's like, all right, come here, I'll just give you a haircut, because you're in that environment. And the main point of that is, if you go around, let's say in a room of 5-10 people, that all they talk about is, let's say, how to make hamburgers, right? How to make the best burgers, where to get the best ingredients, how to make it so that anyone who eats it, like it tastes so good that you just want to keep going back. They know how to market it. They know how to make it a business, how to recruit people on their team to do it. Like if you're in that room with those 10 people for like 3 days, don't you think like you'll come out and you'll have some idea of like how to build your own restaurant and market and make the burgers and whatnot, right? So for me, when I met it wasn't TechnoTutor itself, because back then, yeah, my English I could speak, I could understand to a certain degree because I went to high school, so it's like I could speak it, but first of all, I couldn't really speak it because I didn't really know what these words meant. And sometimes when people would talk to me, I couldn't tell them, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean? Because I would feel embarrassed that I don't know anything. Like I literally didn't know. Like 98% of what you would say, I wouldn't comprehend. and my self-esteem would be low. So when they first told me about TechnoTutor, I didn't really comprehend, but what I saw, and didn't understand at the time, but what I saw is the people who use it, because I met the people at an event, and I was fortunate enough to talk to some of the people, Drake, that time Asif, Cameron, David Colum Pepin. We were in the same room when we heard about TechnoTutor, and just seeing the way these people were thinking about life and seeing that they actually had the physical manifestations, meaning if I were to go hang out with them, they had the life, you know, they had the things I wanted. And you know, Cameron, one of the co-founders of TechnoTutor, he lived 5 minutes from me here in Houston. And at that time I would go to their place, and first of all, you would see books everywhere, and you would see how, you know, he's read thousands of books, and you could pick any book and he would tell you what it's about, what are the main keys, what are the main keys that you could apply, right? And I was like, damn, you know, I can't even remember a sentence. Like, how did you remember all these books? But more importantly, the 2.5-year-old Max at the time, he was 2.5, now he's 6.5. He understood more English than I did at age 19. So I was like, how does that work? So that's where that mindset came in of, okay, if I just hang around these people, I don't know how, but like something's gonna change. I'm not gonna lie, initially there was the like wishing or hoping that it would change. I didn't even know it for a fact. And at some point I had to like take that leap of faith, because there's always fear about starting something new. It's like going to skydive. You know, I've heard stories, I've never been, but I've heard stories of people, no matter how much someone pep talks and tries to make you feel good, when you see that you're like, what is it, 10,000 in the air or 100,000 feet in the air, you're like, there's no way I'm jumping out this. It goes against every instinct I have, but every single person that does the jump, it's virtually like in seconds, the fear transcends into like enjoyment and excitement. And they tell everyone else, you should go do it, right? So with TechnoTutor, it was like that. It's like, I was like, I don't know. I've tried all these courses in the past. I've spent so much money. Well, I borrowed money from my mom to spend her money and didn't get results. So how do I know this is gonna be different? And there's a lot of that fear, but I ended up doing it. You asked what was the final triggers. I was chatting with Drake, and he was like, you know, I was supporting someone else using TechnoTutor, and they had, you know, a whiteboard, and then on it they had like the to-do list of what they wanted to get that done that day, and they would just delay, procrastinate. As he's saying that, I look over, and on my whiteboard I had things that's been there for like 2-3 weeks that I never got to, and he was like, yeah, I just supported him. He put his to-do list in his TechnoTutor, and he just did it. And I was like, what? So you're saying if I use TechnoTutor, it will help me actually get the things done and not be as lazy? And that's what really intrigued me, and that's why I got it. And then later I found out how powerful really the tool was. But for me, that simple thing made me be like, all right, I'm in, you know, and around the people. But yeah,
for sure,
you know,
that's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you get TechnoTutor, and what's the first thing you use it for right away? And what did you notice with that as well?
First thing I used it for right away. First of all, the first thing when I saw how to use it, I was like, this is it. Like, it's so simple, right? And I think Drake said, like, you want it to be harder? Like, would you use it if it's harder? And I was like, no. He's like, you don't want it to be simple. It's funny because when it's simple, people don't use it. But it's like, I told people I wouldn't have used it for 4 years now. It wasn't simple. But the first thing I used it, I just went through the alphabet really, because I was like, I need to fix my English. Like, I could barely understand anything. And the first result that I saw with it was, you know, when you go on Facebook and someone posts those status, like when they write a bunch of stuff and it says see more, my biggest fear was like finding, because I have fear of words, you know, and my fear was to click see more and then have a lot of stuff just drop down, and I'm like, shit. So as soon as I would see more, I would always skip through. But the first time, this is like 2-3 weeks after just using TechnoTutor for like 10 minutes, you know, or maybe 20 minutes. The first time I clicked the see more, it dropped down. I just read through the entire thing and actually understood what it said. I think it was like Cameron's post or something. And I got like excited. I was like, that's never happened before. And I think I left a comment that had nothing to do with the post. I think I just left the comment, and the comment was like, I just read through the whole thing. Holy shit, you know, or something like that. And Cameron's like, what are you talking about? You know? But that was like significant to me because, you know, growing up your whole life and always having the lowest self-esteem because knowing that you can't understand basic things that other people understand. And for first time you finally understanding it, I don't know, that's like, I was like, this is crazy. And then the first year and a half, it's like I just kept using it, then didn't use it, but then I used it towards, again, getting better health, talking to more people, literally the same mentality of like when I first heard about law of attraction, I was using it for that. And then around 2 years, so that's the first thing I used it. And then a little bit later, that's when I was like, wait, I just used this tool to get really good at all these aspects. I wonder if I could use this to finally break through this wall of fire to make money, right? But first I use it for everything but money, but yeah.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that. When you decided to face that wall.
Yeah, so I remember there's a time where I went to California for 3 months because my dad was there, and he was like, hey, I'm doing this surgery on my knee to see if I have tumor or whatever. And I don't know if I could, how long it'll take for me to heal and be able to walk after. So do you want to come and take care of me? And I was like, yeah. So I just went for like 3 months. And then when I came back in those 3 months, it's like I was in a ranch, not connected to the group and anything. So then when I came back, I started hearing everyone talk about Mitchell, of like Mitchell used it to then go from making $3,000 to like 30 grand and this and that. And I'm like, who's Mitchell and how is he using it to make money? Like, I didn't know you could use this to really make that much money. And so I remember I hopped on a call with Mitchell, and he really helped me. He just gave me a simple thing. He's like, hey, just put in TT, like it's fun to use TT. And he gave me a few phrases, and I did that. And then within a week and a half, like using TT became fun. So then I reached back out and I was like, now how do I use it for this? And then around the same time, Cameron showed me the Destiny I process light. So the process of doing self-forgiveness, all that. And then I would jump on calls with Drake for like hours at a time, 2-3 hours. And he would do self-forgiveness back and forth so that it would click for me the concept of what that even is. Because it took a while for my comprehension to increase. So it's like, they were like, you do this, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. So then combining TechnoTutor, it helped me bring up all the quote unquote programming or limiting beliefs that was holding me back from getting money, and then using self-forgiveness to then let it go, and then using TechnoTutor to then reprogram what I wanted. That's when things shifted, and the thoughts came up that like I would never think, like ideas like, you know, let's say when I was a kid and my dad would see this guy who was making a lot of money and making like a comment that was like 10 seconds. I was like, oh, you see, that guy who's making money is like evil. Like, you know, these people, they're like the most asshole people. Like, you know, it was making me feel like if I make money, that I'll be a really evil person. So, and that's just one of like thousands of different beliefs that was within me. And so when that's running within you like millions of times per second, and then you consciously are like, oh, I want to make 10 grand a month. It's like, no wonder you can't do it, because deep down you think that you're going to be evil if you make money. Or like the belief that everyone says, you know, oh, so-and-so who made money, they changed. Like, oh, so-and-so, man, like they made some money and now they think they're whatever, you know, and like, we don't want to talk to those people. And so I was like, shit, what if I make money and I change, you know? So I was like, fear of that. So there was a bunch of these little points. And as soon as it took me 30 days and I spent like 5-6 hours of doing TechnoTutor to like really bring up all these points, let it go. And virtually 30 days later, in one day, I just made like 8 grand, you know? and I didn't even know how. You know, I was like holding the money in my hand, and I was like, what just happened? Kind of like when you drive home, and sometimes as you're driving, all of a sudden you realize, oh shit, I'm driving, you know, because it's like you doze off, and then you're like, wait, you know, I'm in the middle of the highway. Or you get home and you're like, wait, how did I just get home? It's because it's like unconscious. And so TechnoTutor puts the information in the part of your brain that when you get results, it's like that. It's like you get home and you're like, wait, how did this even happen? So it's like I start working out, being in the gym with like dumbbells in my hand, and I'm like, wait, what am I doing here? Like, I should be playing video games normally according to my current programming. Or I made money and I'm like, wait, normally by here I would have already quit. So I still at that time didn't really understand what was going on, even though I was getting the results. It was crazy.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah.
Definitely. That's such a key point that you mentioned about just your thought process around money.
Yeah.
Because so often, especially if you didn't grow up like super wealthy, around a lot of money, we have those limiting beliefs. And oftentimes we're not even aware of them, right? So like, for instance, money, I'm sure we've all heard, money's the root of all evil, money doesn't grow on trees, you know, when you get money, you change, stuff like that. Just this lack of money overall.
Yeah.
It's very like lower middle class programming around money.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we're not even aware of it, like I said.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you're watching this, consider that in terms of our mindset and just overall life, think about it as almost a thermostat. Money's a great example for this, where say your baseline, your set point is making $5,000 a month. Say you're doing, you know, you're working in 1 month, you make $10,000 a month, maybe 11 grand, 12 grand a month. It's like you'll go above that set point. And what you'll notice happen is that programming, that baseline, that set point will kick in, and you'll slowly start sabotaging yourself back to where you're comfortable. Right. It might take a month, it might take a year, but time and time again, this is a very common thing. Say you make less than that, it's like the survival program kicks in, and you work super hard to make it back to where you're comfortable, and then it's like you lay off the gas.
Yep.
And yeah, this is a super common thing, because I'm talking to like very high performance entrepreneurs like all day long, and you hear very common threads, especially if they didn't come from money and they're building a business, where I hear it all the time, where people will have success and then they start taking their foot off the gas.
Yeah, and they lose it. Yeah.
Exactly. Which is like that programming that kicks in.
Yeah.
Really.
That's actually a good point of making money spending it, right? That's something I explain to people, because, you know, I even made a video of how I made, I think, 10 grand in one day by age 22 or something. I think I made like 12K actually, but I just put 10K because even that, I'm like, I don't know if people could believe that. But then people are like, oh, if you made all this money, why aren't you in a mansion and this and that? Well, first of all, I got this apartment because downstairs it's like luxury, and it's so big that I was like, it's a good place to build the clubhouse, mastermind groups, all that. Like, I'm not gonna bring random people to my house that I don't know. But at the same time, I had the program to make the money in one day, but then I was like, damn, in one day I just made what my mom, let's say, makes in 3-4 months, so I don't need to do anything. And then I would take my foot off the gas and then spend all the money, go into survival, then do it all over again, and then not having the right understanding on how to build wealth of, okay, how do I then save X amount? Where do I even invest this? What even I do with this money that does come in? And because I didn't have that understanding, it was like in that cycle. So I had to then spend time to learn how to then build wealth. So then the 10K just comes every month without me even, you know, with me actually not taking my foot off the gas. And that still takes time, right? Yeah. So it's a great point to mention, yeah.
Yeah, even that's super key as well, because that's the cool thing about TechnoTutor. It's like at every level, you can use it to really break through. Because I'm sure you've heard the quote that you'll never outwork your own self-image.
Yeah.
Or right, it's super key to understand. or
Can
how.
you break that down? Because I don't think people would understand that. Maybe.
Yeah, it goes kind of hand in hand with how, at the end of the day, especially if you're in sales, especially if you're in business, the results that you get are really just a reflection of who you are, right? And like, you look at, I'm sure you've heard Alex Ramosi, right? He's really blowing up, but one of the things he breaks down is how, especially as like an entrepreneur, there's basically two categories, two things to improve, and that's it. It's skills and mindset. And 80% of it is mindset, right? And so really breaking that down a bit more, kind of going back to that thermostat example, in every area of life, we have that, right? With finances, with relationships, with health. We have that baseline, and we have that kind of programming around that largely we didn't direct. Like, we didn't choose that, but we learned through our environment, through growing up. And now at this point, it's just automatic thought patterns, beliefs, behaviors, and we're often like not even aware of what's holding us back.
Right. And when you say that, most people are like, oh, okay, then I just need to go change the thermostat, and they still think, okay, well, I don't need the tool. Now I know the information you got from using the tool, so I'll just go apply the information, but not really understand that the thermostat that Pedro is talking about is like, imagine, you know, those big maze runner things, like those mazes and whatnot, where it's like you don't even know where you are, where to even go. Imagine the thermostat's like somewhere in there, and you're dropped at like the most random point, and you don't even know out of the 10 directions where to even go to even find that thermostat.
100%.
And TechnoTutor just makes it so that you just go straight to that thermostat, and then gives you the ability to then change it to whatever temperature you want, or the degree of money you want to make, relationships, all that. And that's really the key that I think most people don't get, because it's like they hear it, they think, oh, that's all I need to do. Well, guess what? What if the next hour, you know, something happens in your life, you have to figure out, okay, what to eat for lunch, or let's say you lose a bunch of money, or something happens in your relationship, and guess what? As soon as some chaos happens, you're gonna forget everything me and Pedro is saying. So if you don't have a way to really take that in and make it become your natural instinct, then how are you ever gonna change what you're currently doing, right? This is just to be another video you watch and then go, and then 2 months from now, you still make the same amount, you're still doing the same thing, right? So, yeah.
There's a very key difference between knowing the path and walking the path. And if you're watching this, you're like, okay, but how? It's a little too much to dive into now. Feel free, you can read it. But I want to touch on just more of like the results that you've seen. You mentioned, you know, going from like not making a ton of money, really struggling with that, to making 10, 12 grand in a day. What are some of those other like results that you've seen that have had a lot of impact?
Okay. Well, I could break down any area of life, whether it's wealth, relationship, or health. And in each one, I mean, I've achieved a lot. First, again, not being able to speak, not being able to, you know, hold a conversation for more than a minute with people. Like, imagine talking for 30 seconds and then the guy just turning around, walking away because they're bored. To then building a network of, you know, worldwide, like I could talk to anyone, I could reach out to anyone. That's, I mean, huge, right? Here in Houston, like now I mentor I met one guy, he's in politics, right? I've met a few who are in politics, but this guy, he's in the House of Representatives, and he's this young looking guy, very, like, you look at him, you're like, okay, he fits the image of what a great politician looks like. The way he talks, like his tonality, his everything, it's like high status, right? And then we went for a coffee, and he started sharing me with his story and whatnot. It's interesting. He used to be a history teacher, and then he transitioned into going into politics to then apply what he learned there. And I just started asking him questions and whatnot. And then he hit a point where he was like, he started sharing with me, he doesn't even know what his purpose is, or he doesn't even have the right mentor. Like, he's looking for mentors and whatnot, right? And he wanted me to be one of his mentors, you know?
Yeah.
And to get to that level, I mean, that's, to me, change. Change is something that should be measurable, not how you feel. Change should be like, if I tape your mouth, someone else can see what you've done and point it out to you, not something that you have to tell other people. It has to be physical. And when you see, you know, when I bring people to my life, meet them locally, things like that, it's like they can see that I just don't talk about this thing. It's like, it's the resonance points. It's like they see all of it. They see the cars, they see. And now at this point, I don't even care about like materialistic stuff of like the watches, whatever. It's like I bought 20 watches, all the Rolexes, this, that. I don't even wear the Rolexes. Like, I just wear like a simple like citizen watch. Like, I don't even care at this point, you know? I have like 14 suits. I just wear one, literally, you know? And because you realize, oh, it's not about that, but I had to get it so people could see what's possible. And then that's to money in terms of, you know, being able to do, I don't know the exact amount. I think I've sold over $500,000, probably 3/4, like almost $1 million in terms of sales, making over 6 figures in net. And that may not be impressive to some people, but to me, coming from Iran, doing that by age 23, 24, and that's just like the beginning of it. And in terms of relationship, now I'm actually in a committed relationship with a girl that it's like you would only see them on like, you know, Miss America type woman, you know? You're like, damn, she's beautiful. She got like the colorful eyes and this and that. And at the same time, she's smart. She has very high vocabulary. Like the way she'll question you, like if you could get through to her, then you could get through to anyone, in terms of she knows how to like bring up facts, emotions, like everything, right? Like master sales, right? And I've learned a lot from her even. And you know, I remember literally a year ago, I couldn't even picture what me in a relationship would even look like. Because in Iran, I grew up 15 years with no women around me. The only ones were my mom, aunts, and my cousins. And that's different than meeting a stranger and wanting to date and all that. So I didn't even know the idea of a date, right? Like when I came here and they're talking about dates, I thought the dates is like in Iran, in Middle East, you have these dates where it's like kind of sweet, you know what I'm talking about? And then you eat it with tea, and they're like, you should go on a date. And I'm picturing like a date, and then I go on top of it. I was like, what does that even mean? Like, it makes no sense. So that was my vocabulary, you know? And I remember telling Katie, Cameron's wife, I was like, you know, it's like, let's say I'm in my office, I finish working, I go outside, and there's a woman in my house. It's like, what do I even talk to her about? What do I even do? It's like, I could not even picture what a relationship even is, right? So now in that context, it's like, now in a relationship, she makes amazing food, right? She posts some of it. Like she made this like homemade cheeseburger the other day.
I saw it.
You saw that?
Fire. That looks fire.
That was fire. And then she made like a whole chocolate cake and ice cream and all that after. So it's like everything in one, you know? And then in terms of health, I never would work out more than 2-3 months. And in those 2-3 months, it was like 2 times a week, 3 times a week, and never really understanding what diet is or eating or whatever. And then using TechnoTutor to really integrate words around health in general, like what is calories, what is dieting, what is this, what is that. And now for the first time, I'm at a point where I could see my abs. Like I never was able to see abs like my whole life. I could barely do like, I remember before I started working out, and I worked out because Chandler supported me to get into working out because she always, you know, worked out and whatnot. And I remember I could barely do 2 pull-ups, you know? And then yesterday I just did like 15 like it was nothing. And like in mid-session between meetings, I just do like 10 to 15 pull-ups, and then now I do handstands and all that. Like everything I always would see other people on YouTube doing, now I'm doing all that, right? I learned how to play the guitar, and like 30 minutes, you know, finger slide. Like I was talking to a guy, the thing that I learned how to do, and he did a way more basic version of it, just one note at a time, and it took him 4 months, and it took me 40 minutes to go through it, you know? Yep. And so just having the tool where you have confidence that you could learn anything that you ever wondered, oh, what it would be like to do X, now being able to do whatever the X was, solving Rubik's Cube, like it could be simple stuff. Being able to do that, that makes life worth living, right? Because everyone's like, oh, like you see suicide rates go up. You see people not knowing what AI is going to do, right? World Economic Forum saying 800 million jobs are going to be replaced, all that. People are freaking out. And really imagine if you have a tool that makes you so smart that doesn't matter what the economy is like, you have full confidence that you could adjust and adapt to whatever it is. Because do you think a billionaire freaks out when there's a pandemic? Definitely. Right? Definitely not.
Looking forward to it.
What is it?
They're looking forward to it because they're
looking forward to it.
Of opportunity.
Right. I think it was during the pandemic, the recession, quote unquote recession, where Elon Musk made $36 billion in a day, meaning he made $405,000 a second. In 1 second, he made 8 times what the average person makes in a year, in 1 second.
And so even the top 1%, they all got wealthier.
Yeah.
Versus 100%. Everyone else, the 99%, all got worse. They lost.
Right. Yeah.
That's the level of thinking that we're talking about.
Right. And how else would you do that? How else are you going to compete with a guy who's making $2 billion a week and you don't even know how to make $2,000 in a month? Yeah. And if you're not in part of the groups, where most people don't even know what Agenda 2030 is still, and they're wondering why the prices of homes and all that's going up. I'm like, dude, if you knew what the Agenda 2030 was, everything would make sense, but most people don't even know that. So just being in the group of TechnoTutor will make you be ahead of the game by itself. And then you use that tool and then you just go on a whole nother level after that, right?
100%.
So yeah.
How old are you, by the way, just to clarify?
Yeah, I'm 24.
20.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, man.
Cool. So
how old are you, Pedro? Come on.
I'm 21.
21, and you're out here making money, running for governor soon, and building a massive network of people. Like, I should be asking you how old are you?
We'll do one of these. You can interview me.
Yeah, there you go. For sure.
Awesome.
This is great. Yeah.
Yeah, this has been great. Just to kind of close things off here, say someone's thinking about getting TechnoTutor. You know, they've heard this interview, they're curious maybe a bit, they have some questions. Why would you recommend someone to reach out or get TechnoTutor?
Okay, great question. So, and I'm pretty sure you tell them where they could reach out to you and whatnot. And the reason they should reach out is because when you get on a one-on-one call with Pedro or with me, then we'll be actually able to support you to see points that no one else has, first of all, seen or had the balls to tell you. And for me, change didn't happen until someone told me, Mahyar, you're living with your mom, you're not making any money. You think you are, but you're not really making any money. You don't have a business, you don't have a girlfriend. And frankly, it's like I was where it's like most guys' biggest fear to be, and I was there and acting like everything's fine. And that was the most difficult, painful things I had to believe. It's like kind of like accepting that, okay, I'm fat, I need to go work out. No one likes to accept that, right? It's painful. But once you accept that and then have someone like Pedro to actually, he's someone that's been where you are in terms of money, whatever it is, who's understanding and don't come from a point of judgment, just having a call will help you see things that you didn't consider before. And the reason you should get TechnoTutor is because then you'll have those aha moments, recognitions every single day, right? Instead of having it, I don't even know how often, you know, before TT, I never even had aha moments. So I don't even know what the average person aha moment, it's like, you can't even imagine how it'll be and there's no words to describe it. So what I can tell someone is what is the asterisk of what's the worst case scenario of just jumping on a call with Pedro, right? And like, people in this world go to seminars, go to conferences, go to places that the people on the stage doesn't even care. Like, they just act like they care, but you would be surprised how many of these people who have the following, all that, like, they don't care. I've met some of them. I met a guy, almost 900,000 followers, and the guy did not care. Like, he's just seeing it as numbers, you know? So yeah, I'm pretty sure you met people like that. So getting connected with people who care is, to me, one of the most important things. And I wouldn't make, like, making money is directly correlated to like how much risk you take. And this, to be honest, is not even risky, but I guess if you're not used to getting on calls with people, like, and it's a free call. Most people charge you thousands of dollars just to hop on a call. We're not even charging anything, you know, just to say what's up. So yeah, that's something they would like. If you're watching this far, then you're the type of person that sees what we're talking about. So I don't think I need to convince you. Like, just reach out. So yeah,
100%. Awesome. Yeah, this has been great. I'm gonna link your socials and everything like that. If people want to connect with you, where can they reach out?
Just Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, anywhere, I guess.
Cool. Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to add before we close things off here?
What would you say is the biggest change you've seen so far from using TechnoTutor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a good question. I would say definitely my mindset and how just like how much money I make overall, how much success I have in business. I was the classic entrepreneur, you know, 17, 18 years old. I'm gonna start a business. You know, it's trending on Instagram. You watch the reels, but I'm like, all right, what do I do? Like, where do I start? How do I do this?
Yeah.
And I originally started using TechnoTutor for myself, because I'm a pretty skeptical guy. You know, people are talking about, okay, reprogram your mindset, make more money, build a business, all this stuff. I'm like, okay, come on. Like, I've watched the YouTube videos, I've bought the courses as well, I've read the books, done the affirmations, literally everything.
Yeah.
But doing that stuff, I had to face this point that, okay, I'm reading all these books, 50, 60 books a year. I'm writing down my goals every day, writing down the affirmations every day. I still feel like shit. Nothing's really changing in my life. I'm not making more money. I don't have a business. I don't have that much self-esteem. You know, I'm not that good of a communicator, a speaker. And so I really had to come to that point for myself of looking at, all right, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Wow.
Right.
Powerful.
Yeah, I mean, now we're similar, like, we're building huge masterminds out here. Had like 70 people at the business masterminds we run. We've gone through a ton of hiring and expansion. Lately, we brought on like 5 new guys in the past month.
Nice.
Building everything up. So it's like night difference. You know?
And one thing you mentioned, I think this is significant, is people look at us now. Like, if you're seeing where Pedro and I are now, and you see how open we are, it looks like we would just buy anything that comes to us and that we're super teachable, whatnot. Like, this wasn't us before. Like, if anything, we were the most skeptical because we're the ones that bought the most courses and none of it works. So we're like, we're not spending money in anything else. So I think people don't see that of like, we were actually where you are. If you were skeptic, all that, like, we were there. The only difference is we just reached out and talked to someone, you know? That's literally the only difference. But I appreciate you sharing. That's cool, man.
I think you'd attest to this as well. But if you met us 2 years, 3 years ago, like, you would not even recognize us.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you sharing your story. There's a lot more that we could dive into, but I think this does the job for now. So,
well, this is awesome. And make sure whoever's watching, subscribe to Pedro, like, share with your friends, because if you benefited from this, there's someone else you know that could benefit. Imagine, wouldn't you want them to share with you? So give as you want to receive. That's all. We'll end it out. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks for being here, Mayor. Talk soon.